This video I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would go about building the tail. And the first step is to cut the tail away from the wing panel. And my next step is to go ahead and cut out my tail. I'm going to be removing the lines from the material. And now if we take a close look, you can see the line going around the outside, and you can see here I have no line. I have nice crisp corners. So that's my tail and how I'm going about cutting it out. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make the folds here. And to do that, I'm going to be using a really thin steel ruler. And I'm going to be using the edge of the table. Or in this case, I'm working on a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. So what I'm going to do is bring this right to the edge. Now, it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to go ahead and flip this over because I want my ink on the inside. So now I'm using the edge of my table here, or the edge of my board, to start the crease. And I'm taking and pushing the material into the edge of the board. And you can see I'm starting to get a crease line there. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And I'm going right to the corners, right to the 2 points. And again, I'm just starting the crease. Okay, so now that I have the crease started, I'm going to lay the ruler up here, and I'm going to let this material hang over the edge, which would bring my ruler right to the edge. And now I'm going to be moving the material right over the edge of the ruler and pushing it back so that I cause the crease to fold right where I've been creasing on it. So now I've got a good fold right on those lines. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And again, I'm making sure that I crease it to the inside. It really doesn't matter one way or the other, just as long as you go the same way. And I guess really it doesn't matter if you go the same way, but I'm trying to be consistent here. So now I'm going to fold it over. Again, I'm going to bring this right to the edge. I'm going to lay my ruler in here. I'm going to bring these. I'm using this edge of this ruler because it's really thin, and it allows me to make a nice crease right where I want it. Once you get it started, then it's easy to take it and bring it back to that. Okay, so again, a nice straight crease, just like that. So now I have both sides. You can see the creases are good. Now, this is where I'm going to be different than probably most guys, because I'm going to go stitch this. I'm going to put a stitch right close to this edge and keep it, about 3/16 of an inch from the edge, because I want just enough room for the pocket. Okay, here's a look at how I stitched it. And the idea is to create this pocket right along this edge. Again, it doesn't matter if you don't have a sewing machine and you're not able to stitch it, as you can use the Blendrum or the Tedlar tape, and you can actually cut on the dotted line, remove it, and put your carbon right on the edge, and then wrap the tape around on both sides. So there's several different ways you can do it. I like to use the pocket because it ensures that it's not going to come loose or come off, and that's what I prefer. But the bottom line is you just want to make sure that your carbon is attached to the material. And you heard me mention Blendrum tape. This is Blendrum tape. It is from 3M. It's a 3M product, and you can buy this. It's fairly inexpensive depending on where you get it, but the thing is, it works really well. I did some work with the prototype wing and actually used some of this, and it seemed to hold up really well. So I think what I'm going to do is use some of it on a wing. Matter of fact, maybe I'll do it on this one and put everything together with the blender, and then we'll know how it holds up based on the life of this wing. So why don't I go ahead and do that? So I'm telling you to cut this if you want to, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, and we'll do one side of this like this. So basically I'm cutting off the dotted line here. So next what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to work from the inside. So I'm going to turn this over, I'm going to put it right on the edge, and I'm going to use my straight edge here to keep this flat. And I'm going to try to put it on about halfway. So we're going to do it about like that. Okay. And now you can see that it actually sticks pretty well. So now I've cut it back. And now I want to put my carbon on here and roll the carbon back onto it. So here are my two pieces of carbon. One of them is going to go into this pocket that I created. Okay. Now you're learning all my tricks. See, there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat. Okay, but now you can tell this carbon is actually pretty tight. Okay, so there I've got the carbon on this side, and you can see I don't even need to tape that. I don't need to do anything to it really, but my carbon is in this side. And now I'll pull this down because this is actually going to go in the other side. Now for this one I need to make sure I have enough for the post to go inside the base. So I'm going to slide this in so that I can see how far down that needs to go, which needs to go to right there. Lay this down and put my carbon in on this side. Okay, carbon is in now. So I'm going to lay this out. Now I'm going to spring this because this needs to be sprung in. And I want to weight this down because I want to make sure that I have it so that it's springing it open. So I'm going to pull this, push this down just like that, and now I'm going to cut my tape right here so that I can go ahead and roll it over. And you just want to take your time, but the idea is when you roll the tape over, it's going to start sticking. And now you can see that I have my piece on here, and now I'm just going to bring this all around and start sticking this down just like that. And now you can see that I actually have taped the bottom edge. So let's recap. This side has the blender tape edge, and this side has the hem. And the only difference is this side is covered with the yellow material, and this side here is just covered with the tape. Okay, I have two different pieces of carbon, two different sizes. So the first size goes here, and so I'm going to go ahead and take the blender tape, and I'm going to let the tape stick over the carbon and my board, and we're just going to tape it down just like this. Okay, and now I'm going to cut the tape back here, Alright, and just press this down. Now you can see I've got it stuck up here, and that's fine. I'll go ahead and put the next piece on, which is going to be this piece right here. Same thing, I'm going to let it go over and mash it down. Pardon the reach. And we're just going to push this all down. And the last two pieces of carbon, straight carbons that is. So we're going to go one there. Again with a blend tape. Right there, and then lastly this one here. And again with a blender. Putting her down. Okay. Now I'm just going back over all of the seams, pressing them down. Now I'll lift the tape. I'll cut the edge right here and cut the edge there. This way the tape can roll on around the carbon there. And now what I have to do now is CA this plate to here, and you want to do that pretty quickly. So, and then the other thing is I can go ahead and trim my tape and the carbon to the edge of my tail. Okay, so now one piece of tape left to put on, which is over here, and we'll go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to take the tape and I'm going to go right like this all the way down to here. I'm going to cut this back. And then again, I want to roll this tape around this edge. Okay. So now I'm going to lay this flat, and let's wick some CA in my points here. And to ensure that I get that CA in there, I'm going to be cutting the tape. Any tape that's covered the edge, I'm going to be removing it. Like that. And the same thing over here. Because I want to be sure that I get the CA in there. So now this is open to me. Right here and right there. So now I'm going to use some thin CA. I'm going to make sure it's flat. Carefully lift it up and CA these pieces. And now this tail likes one more piece of carbon, and that piece of carbon is going to go from here down and around, and that's going to also help fan. You can see how it's fanning out right now. There's no wrinkles in it, and it's taut, meaning it's sort of stiff, sort of tight, and that's good. So now I can go ahead and add the last piece of carbon, and it's going to go on the inside. It's going to go right up against this piece and up against the other side over here. And what you need to start with is a couple of small pieces of tape, about a ½ inch long, and I'm going to set this carbon right here with the piece of tape, and the piece of tape is going to go about 1/8 of an inch above the carbon, and then wrap it around. So you can see there it's about 1/8 inch above the top edge, and then we're just going to wrap this around tightly. And what that's going to do is going to help secure this to keep the carbon from going that way. And then the same thing on this side. So we need another short piece of tape, and again it's about a ½ inch wide. And we're going to do the same thing over here, except this time I'm going to fold the carbon around and put it like that, and make sure the carbon is pushed down flat. So, and again I'm pulling it back, putting the tape on so that it's about 1/8 inch above the carbon, because that's going to help hold it in place. So now again you can see it's about 1/8 inch above it, and I'm just going to hold this flat, mash that down, and bring the tape on around, mash it together. And now I'm going to run one piece of tape from about here up, and the same thing over here from about here down. And this is to hold the carbon in place. Okay, before I mash it down, I'll let you take a look. It's going from right here, this corner right here, all the way up to just a little bit over the end. And again, we're going to mash it down. We're going to mash it flat and bend it around just like that. Okay, and the same thing for the other side. Again, my corner of the tape here is going to be at this point where it meets, letting it stick over here about 3/8 of an inch. And again, I'm going to cut it so that it's sticking over about 1/8 of an inch over the end of the carbon at the far end here. So there you can see that it's sticking over. So now I'm going to mash this down and mash it onto the carbon. Mash everything down tight. And now I want to make sure that I just follow the edge of this carbon all the way around and keep it good and tight, no wrinkles. And if you get a wrinkle, no big deal, not the end of the world. Okay, now that is a tail that's almost complete. Now one last piece that we have to put on, and that's the wrap down here at the base. I'm going to cut it in half, so I'm going to fold it to figure out where halfway is. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it on this fold line. And now we're going to just peel it off and stick it on here. And I'm going to be putting the tape so that it's down about a 1/16, maybe a 32nd onto the piece of carbon here. So now I'll peel this around, tape it down, and this one here I can go ahead and cut it off or trim it back. So we will trim it like that. And now the last piece of tape goes over the top of this side. So again, we're going to catch the end there. But also I'm going to go ahead and cut this back and do the same thing over here on this one. And now fold these back around. And like that. And like that. And there we have completed the tail. And I think you might agree that turned out pretty good. The only thing left to do now is add the final piece. And this piece plugs in, and it is a tight fit, but it should plug in there, and then you can CA it. And now this tail would be ready to mount.